All right, so now we're going to use the printing jig to ensure that our block is in the same place every time and that our paper will go on the same place every time. Now, I've enclosed the block on two corners so that it can only fit in one spot. It's a little tricky, but it works with this block because I have some open area I can push down on the block to make sure it's in that little spot. You don't need these. You can just have one corner where the block fits, or if you're hand printing, you could have a setup like this and then never remove the linoleum block, inking it up right on your registration jig, and then any ink that gets out here, if you use clear tape on the surface, you can just wipe that ink off to make sure it doesn't get on your paper. All right, so our block is in place. And now we're ready to place our paper. You can see that I've marked every sheet of paper in the corner, and that tells me that it goes right in this corner. Okay? I have, just like I have edges that the block fits up against, I have two edges that the paper fits up against, two bumpers. Okay, so what I'm going to do consistently every time is I'm going to push the paper up against the top bumper, and then I'm going to slide it over to the other bumper so that it's right in place. I'm keeping the paper elevated, of course, off the block the whole time. Once I'm sure it's in the right place, then I can just lay that paper down. You want to do everything consistently, from putting the block in the same way to putting your paper up against one bumper and sliding it over to the next one. When we're hand printing, we can put another piece of paper on top as a barrier to rub the back. When we're using the press, we'll continue to use the tympan, but I want to keep the tympan off of these bumpers, right? In the construction of this jig, the linoleum block's height should be the highest point, higher than these even. And so if I put the tympan down on top of just the block, I don't have to worry about potentially crushing or destroying my paper bumper registration. Okay, so we're ready to put it through the press. And of course, I always want to check it. I don't want to just pull the paper off. Make sure everything's printing well, and it is. Right? This is the last copy of the ones that I've printed. And with a reduction block, we want to print every single copy of our sheets of paper with the very first color. Right? And here's the rest of my edition. All right? You can see I've got them overlapping on just paper, so the ink can dry through air circulation. I've got them all slid to the back of the rack, so if anybody needs to get to some prints below, they're not going to slide across one another and smear the ink. And for your project, I want you to end up with at least 5 copies that are identical. You're going to print many, many more sheets of paper than the number of copies you want. And because you're doing that, you also have the opportunity to make variations. So if you want to change the first color or change any of the colors at any of the stages, you can have different variant prints that have different colors or different numbers of layers. Right? So since our first color is all done, I've printed all the copies I want. Now I need to cut out everything out of the block that I want to stay this first color. So that's what we'll do next.